like I said, the cold, like almost arrogance that this guy had about him led me to believe that he was serious. And when he got out, when we came back to that car, from that car, I had made up my mind that I was going to intervene, and I'd relegated myself to the fact that I'm probably going to get shot.
Stay tuned. Coming up, I interview a man whose situational awareness and intuition helped him to prevent a mass shooting event in Boise, Idaho. Hello and welcome to the Situational Awareness Matters Show, episode 379. I'm your host, Rich Gasway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision making for individuals and teams who work in high risk, high consequence, time compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. For our regular listeners, you know that I took a break from podcasting over the summer. I hit the podcasting scene pretty hard in the beginning, putting out a new episode every Tuesday for more than 7 years. It is now my ambition to podcast on a little less frequent basis than I had in the past, but unless you've been a faithful listener and viewer for the past 7 years, you have hundreds of archived episodes to keep you busy. Today's feature segment is sponsored by Gasway Virtual Training. There are 33 online training programs for you to choose from. Some of the programs are live events presented virtually, and some are pre-recorded programs. To learn more, visit samatters.com website and click on the Virtual Training tab. Okay, let's jump into our feature segment where I interview a man whose situational awareness and intuition helped him prevent a mass shooting event in Boise, Idaho. Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Situational Awareness Matters Show. I'm your host, Rich Gasway, and today I have an amazing opportunity to interview Darin Wall. Darin is a bass player for a band known as Grayhawk. They play heavy metal, and Darin was recently involved in an incident where he probably, by all accounts, prevented a mass shooting. You've heard the saying, see something, say something. Well, Darin just took it to the next level of see something, do something. And we're just going to let this be his story. Darin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rich. I appreciate you having me on. This is a cool opportunity.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you with me. So let's start with kind of like your backstory. Like, where'd you grow up? And I don't know if there's anything in your background, because we just talked briefly on the phone, but I don't know if there's anything in your background that would inspire or compel or prepare you to do the kind of things that you did here. So just kind of give us your, your early years and bring us up to current day.
Sure. Well, one interesting thing is, so I'm actually Canadian, Canadian born. I was born and raised in British Columbia, Canada. Lived there most of my life. My family is a very kind of blue collar family, hardworking folks. I spent a lot of my summers working back on the prairies with friends of mine. So hard work and, diligence and things like that. Those are all things that were very much instilled in me growing up. We're definitely like a farming family. We kind of come from that background. I was an athlete all through high school, played, was a big hockey and football player. That was kind of dominated most of my youth. I found music at a young age too, and developed a passion for that. But didn't really start playing in any serious capacity until I was an adult later on. Got out of high school, kind of drifted around, did a bit of college, did a bit of odd jobs, and I actually wound up in the culinary industry. And I was a fine dining chef for a long time. Then, fast forward to my 30s, I met the love of my life, who lives here in Seattle, Washington. And, we dated long distance for quite a while. And then we decided, well, let's give this thing a shot. So we got married, and I fell in love with Seattle. I fell in love with Washington State. I fell in love with the United States. This is just an absolutely stunningly gorgeous country, full of amazing people. And I decided that, living here would be in my best interest. And when I came down here, I continued my musical career. I played in a couple other bands around Seattle. And then I eventually started Grayhawk with a couple of good friends of mine. And at that time, I switched careers as well. So I'm working closely to the with the fire department in building fire safety. My specialty is kitchen fire suppression and fire safety. So I work closely with local fire marshals, and kind of ties my two. It kind of continues the career in the restaurant industry. I saw a couple of those places burn down, and I saw how dangerous kitchen fires can get. It's one of the biggest hazards, and one of the fires that could spread the quickest, especially on a roof. And as well as probably better than me, that when a fire's on the roof of a building, that creates a much more dangerous ball game. And kitchen fires are the kind of fires that can feed themselves. There's gas, there's electricity, there's lots of grease and Class A material and things that are around. So that's been a very fulfilling career. I've recently been starting to do classes with local AHJs and fire marshals on these hood fire suppression systems. And in October, I'm scheduled to do a big talk at the state fire marshal convention out in Lake Chelan in Washington. So I'm looking at that as a great opportunity. So yeah, that's kind of my life is fire safety and heavy metal music. And I live here in the South Seattle area with my wife, and we got one giant dog and one tiny cat.
I had no idea we had that common connection. When you told me on the phone that you work with fire marshals and kitchen safety, but I didn't quite get that it was to the extent that it is, and that you would be speaking at a conference that I have spoken at before.
Oh wow, that's very cool. Yeah, they asked me not too long ago, so I'm actually kind of putting together my class that I'm going to teach. I'm going to close out the conference on the Friday morning. Give a 3-hour class on, kitchen fire suppressions and the relationship with fire marshals and commercial fire companies, because it's just so important that we all can work together. And I really, one of the things I noticed about fire inspectors is they're saddled with so much knowledge that they have to have, so that their knowledge is inherently like a couple inches deep and several miles wide. And it's just they rely on us to be the experts. And so in order for us to be the experts, we have a good relationship with them. That it needs to be like this. It needs to be really really tight.
Yeah, nice. Well, thank you for that mission, because it's very, very important both to the the restaurant industry, but to the patrons and to the fire service as well. So you're
Certainly
kind of helping our profession with that mission as well. So you started Grayhawk, and so what kind of music do you play? Are you strictly local to Seattle, or is this a traveling band? What's a little bit of the backstory there?
So we started as a bit of, it's an interesting one. We started as a ambition just to kind of be a local-ish band. We got together in 2018, and we recorded a 5-song EP, and we just kind of started gigging around town. And we went to we got signed to a small little label, which was cool. And then I at the time, I guess we were playing, the style of music we play is very much a throwback. I almost call it ancient heavy metal. Like it harkens back to the styles of the 80s bands like Iron Maiden, Ronnie James Dio, Black Sabbath, even stuff like Blue Oyster Cult and whatnot, because that's the stuff that I love. I mean, that's near and dear to my heart. So we started playing that. I was a little bit jaded on, no one's ever going to really care. Like there's an underground scene for it. And, some of the older generation of people who grew up with that will like us, but it's not going to go too far. And then I took a trip to Germany, and I saw in Germany, this stuff is alive and well, and like it is still mainstream music over there. And I was like, okay, well, if there's a scene like this, maybe we should push a little harder. So we pushed a little harder and we made our first full length, got signed to a label in Spain called Fighter Records, who are a great label. And yeah, we play in Seattle a lot. That's home base, but we get up to Canada quite a bit. We go lots of different places in the United States. And before COVID hit, we were scheduled to get to Europe to play a couple of shows. So this is it's definitely like nothing we look at as a career per se. But you're playing underground metal; it's probably not going to pay the bills. But we definitely see it as a serious hobby and one that lets us go see different parts of the world, which is really cool.
Where would somebody be able to find the schedule of, say, upcoming events that you would be at?
So you would want to look at our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Grayhawk Metal. Our Instagram, same handle, Grayhawk Metal, or we have a Bandcamp, bandcamp.com. Grayhawkmetal.bandcamp.com. I think that's how it goes. So yeah, there's lots of resources there as far as our social media goes, where we have our dates coming up. Right now, we only have 2 dates scheduled. We have only one now. Actually, we only have one at the end of September on the 26th. We'll be playing a local venue called El Corazon because with us still being kind of in the grips of COVID, it's a little bit dicey to book tours right now because you just don't know if you're going to be able to hang on to the dates or not. So
right. All right. So recently you had a live event in Boise.
Correct. Yep.
So when was that?
That was on my 41st birthday. That was Saturday, September 4th.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the first time we've ever played Boise. I've visited before. And it's a beautiful city, and I've always had a great time there. So I was definitely very much looking forward to play it.
Nice. So, what's the venue like? Describe it. Is it theater seating? Is it like a bar setting? What is it?
It's more of a bar setting, but it's I'd say it's a large. It's kind of a hybrid of like a club / bar. They have a big stage, huge sound system. It's a very legit venue. Lots of arcade games in there, and a bar area, and upstairs, very high ceilings. It's very legit. I wouldn't call it a little dive bar or anything like that. It's a legit music venue, and the people, the vibe in that room was fantastic. It was absolutely a great place to hang out.
Okay, so take us through what happened that evening, and take your time and share the details, and you can start well ahead of the actual event that occurred, and because I'm just very intrigued how this all came to be.
Okay, sure. So we got asked to play this show by some people who were fans of ours. They'd heard our music and they decided that they would like to, they played in some bands out there. They'd like to bring us and another local Seattle band called Command out to Boise to play a show. And we said, yeah, that sounds fun. And I was like, oh man, they got a date on my birthday. Like, why not? So, we loaded up a couple of vehicles on Saturday morning. We headed out at first light, and, we drove out there and checked ourselves into a hotel and went to the venue and hung out there and, met everybody. And we were just making friends left and right. Everybody out there it seemed like the music scene out there is very tight knit. Everybody seemed to know each other. Everybody was, very happy that we were there and whatnot. And then, we watched the opening bands play, had fun with them. And then it was our turn to go on. We went on and had a great performance. I'm kind of I'm a power lifter as well. So I have this strongman stunt I do on stage where I put a 1/4-inch steel bar in my teeth and, bend it in half. That went over really well. People kind of freaked out about that. We played really well, and then everybody was really excited. We sold a whole bunch of merchandise. We were signing autographs, which was really neat. And then it was very much a community atmosphere. Everyone was like talking. We got to get you guys back here. What are you guys doing later? Like, let's hang out. So it was a great atmosphere in the room. And I even moments before everything went weird, I even said to my guitar player, I said, hey, this is really what I needed. This is really therapeutic, like getting out of town, playing some music, meeting some new people that I don't know. Cause we've all been locked up for a year plus. I haven't been traveling, I haven't met anybody new in a long time. So it's nice to meet some fresh faces, right?
Up to this point, everything is just going great.
Oh, it was the best I could ask for. I mean, the crowd sang me happy birthday. Like it was the best I could ask for, and there was no negativity in the place or anything. So the night ends. We watch all the bands, and everyone loads their gear out. And at the shredder, there's behind the stage. There's kind of an outdoor seated area, right? There's like some picnic. It's covered, and there's some picnic tables out there, and everyone had kind of congregated there, and it was a few people were hanging out after hours. So the bar's closed, the doors are shut, but everyone's back there hanging out. And there's also but at the same time there was also a side entrance which leads to a parking lot, and there were some people. I think some gear was still being taken out at that point. So at one point, someone came up to me and said, "Hey, there's some guy out in the parking lot. And he's kind of being an asshole. I'm sorry, he's being a jerk. I was paraphrasing. There's some guy out there. He's causing a problem, and we got to keep an eye on him." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so I went out. I kind of poked my head up and I checked it out. And when I'm sure you've had to deal with your share of really drunk and obnoxious people before. They're usually really loud. They're really angry. It's a bunch of hot air. It's blah, 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 blah. I'm into this, I'm into that. They might take a swing at somebody and might clip somebody in the side of the head. And like, okay, just knock it off, pal. So I wasn't really too concerned. I've seen this movie 100 times. This guy was different. He was, I would say, very cold. He had a different energy about him, and kind of right away I was like, this is a little weird. So there's another gentleman, his name is Craig. He plays in another local band in Boise. He had confronted the guy, and this gentleman was trying to get into the venue. He was trying to force his way into the bar where everybody was hanging out. And this guy said, "Look, the bar's closed. Like, you can't come in. Like, the night's over. We're all leaving. Like, you can't come in." And I wasn't privy to the whole conversation. I was kind of looking at it. The guy was significantly bigger than the individual who was trying to enter the venue. So I was like, no, I'll keep my eye, but I don't think I'm needed right now. So I kind of sat back down and I was just watching the situation. So they eventually separated, and the individual was trying to come into the bar. His car was sitting there still running in the parking lot. As he's walking back to his car, he does this to the crowd. And he starts making a finger gun motion and pretending to pop rounds off at the crowd. And at that point I went, okay, this is concerning. So I kind of popped my attention up a little bit. He got back in his car, and I was like, please just drive away. Please just drive away. He got out of the car and he had a backpack on. And I was like, okay, this is now, the game's changed a little bit. I said to somebody next to me, I said, "Call the police, please." And she said, "Excuse me." I said, "Just call the police." And at that point, I got up and made my way towards the entrance area of the bar. The Craig confronted the guy again, and they were talking, and it started to get a little more heated. And I was kind of behind him at this point. And then Craig pushed him back, and there's a little bit of pushing and shoving. So at this point, I moved outside to the parking lot area. And they were kind of squaring off a little bit. And then I saw the gun come out. I saw it was a small pistol. I don't know if it's a 9mm or 22, but I saw the pistol come out. And, I was like, okay, so now I'm going to get involved here. So I stepped in and I kicked him really hard on the inside of his leg and kind of buckled him and pushed. And my whole thought was I need to get him away from the crowd. And I kicked him, buckled his leg, and I pushed him away from the crowd. And on his way back, as I pushed him, he put the gun in his pant pocket, and he pulled the trigger, and he squeezed off a round, and he shot me through his pocket, and he caught me in the left upper part of my thigh, close to my pelvis. He missed my femoral artery by an inch. And for those of you who don't know, that's just about a death sentence if you get hit in the femoral artery. So I went down and I got back up and I called him an expletive that I will not repeat on your show. And at that point, he ran. he ran off. And my guitar player, and my guitar player Jacqueline is about 5 feet tall of just absolute fearlessness. She was right beside me and she grabbed me, and because I was kind of still confronting the guy, trying to get him away, and as he's running, and she said, "Dude, come with me. You've been shot." And I went, and I don't remember what I said. I said, "Really?" or something like that. And she pulled me towards a vehicle and put me in a vehicle and took her hooded sweatshirt off and tied it around the top of my leg like a makeshift tourniquet, real tight. And she applied pressure to the wound. So at this point, and then the police showed up. The police were there within seconds. And because we found out that they were, and I was like, man, that's some quick response time in Boise. Like, did you guys teleport here? So come to find out that they were in the area searching for this guy because he'd been driving around in traffic, waving his gun at people and threatening them with his pistol. So he was he was out causing trouble. So from this point, my drummer, who's also a parole officer, great awareness of what to do at the time. He grabbed one officer and says, "You have one gunshot victim over here. You need a medic immediately." He's like, "Drop what you're doing, call a medic." And they called the medic. The police kind of worked with me for a little bit, and paramedics showed up, and they immediately loaded me on a gurney, put me in an ambulance, and I was taken off to a local hospital where it was funny. I was like, the pain didn't really start until later. I still wasn't in a lot of pain, probably because of adrenaline. I can't say enough good things about the first responders that were there. The guy who was attending to my wound in the ambulance was a field medic in Afghanistan for 3 years. So I kind of felt like I was in about the best hands I could possibly be in for a gunshot trauma wound. So they worked me over in the ambulance, got me into the hospital where there's a trauma team waiting. They analyzed the wound. The bleeding wasn't severe. Thankfully, like somehow this shot, it's still in me. Like I still got the bullet in my quad. Somehow this bullet missed every nerve, artery, and vein it could have. I mean, I also have giant powerlifting thighs, which might have contributed to that, but it's just lodged in muscle and it's missed anything that possibly could be vital. Probably by centimeters. So they left. They did X-rays, and the trauma surgeon came in with an ultrasound, and he was kind of putting it over my veins and arteries, and it kind of sounded like thunder, which was pretty cool. It sounded like a thunderstorm. So he did all that, and then he said, "I think you're going to be fine, but we're going to run a CT scan just to make sure." Which I've never had a CT scan before, and that was wild. So they injected me with this. If you've never had a CT scan before, it's really weird. They injected me with this dye, and it had this warming sensation through every part of my body, including every extremity. And I thought that I'd wet myself. And I was like, "Oh no." And the nurse said, "What?" I said, "I think I wet myself." So no, that's just the dye. And even if you did, don't worry, I've seen it before. Don't be embarrassed. I was about to be so embarrassed. But but it was apparently that's just the warming sensation of the liquid. So they did a CT scan, and those results came back clear. So they discharged me from the hospital about 4 a.m. And that's when I got really tired, and that's when the pain kicked in. So I went back. There's one of the bandmates had a cousin that lived in Nampa, which is just west of Boise, I believe. So my singer picked me up there and took me over to their house, and they got me in bed, and we got some medication from a 24-hour pharmacy that the doctors prescribed on the way home, and I slept it off there. And then the next day, like there was probably a huge crew of musicians. Everyone from the show was there at the house to kind of offer support, and they got me back to Seattle that next day. Loaded me up in one of the vehicles, and we got back home, and I've just been back home convalescing. And the latest developments, I guess I saw a doctor today, and she said everything's looking pretty good. We're going to talk to a couple other trauma specialists just to make sure leaving the bullet in is the right choice, and look at some long-term care options and what the best options are for healing, physical therapy and whatnot. And the latest development out of Boise is the guy was, like, his bail was posted at $500,000, which is, a lot. He's been charged with a couple felony charges, and the latest development was in that backpack that he had. They found another pistol. They found a drum extended 24-round magazine that was loaded. They found 3 additional loaded 9mm magazines. So it seemed like he had some bad intentions. I mean, it's one thing to conceal carry a pistol to protect yourself. It's another thing to have 2 on you and about 100 rounds of ammunition. That to me indicates some form of premeditation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt the role that you played in preventing a mass incident. I have a couple follow-up questions for you. So the definition for intuition is knowing something without knowing how you know something. It's just kind of like a subconscious form of knowledge from past training, past experience. It could come from anywhere. It could come from upbringing. It could come from a movie that you watched. It seems to me that you had some form of intuition or gut feel that things were not right with this situation, that compelled you to be more vigilant and more concerned than obviously a lot of people were there. It sounds like it was a pretty good sized gathering, and it seems like you saw things in a way that was different than what other people saw, and that compelled you to take some action. Do you have any martial arts background, or any training within the first responder area that you can attribute, military background, anything you can attribute to this sense of vigilance that you developed that allowed you to see what others around you seemingly just couldn't see, or maybe they just saw it and it just didn't register with them like it did with you?
I mean, there's a combination of things. I mean, I was, I had a couple beers over the evening, but I was also relatively sober. I mean, I had a vehicle I was responsible for driving that night, so I was not about to get really intoxicated. I do have some training. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's extensive, but I do have some training, and I have definitely learned to read body language. And I think that when people use certain body language, there's certain things you can read about them, and when people, I believe, are carrying weapons, or like especially a gun, there's a certain and they're being aggressive with it. There's a certain arrogance that person will carry about them, where it's an equalizer. I mean, I'm 6'2", 280 pounds, a solid muscle. Someone pulls a piece on me, that fight is now they now have the advantage, right? So I mean, that guy had that certain arrogance about him, where he's kind of walking around like I could shoot any one of you anytime, and he was definitely had that cold arrogance going on, and that's to me was a telltale sign that he was serious, especially when he did the finger gun motion. I was like some people, I've been at parties, where people have, yeah, I'm going to shoot you, or you're getting buckshot or something. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure thing, pal. I don't even think you own a gun. But like I said, the cold, like almost arrogance that this guy had about him led me to believe that he was serious. And, when he got out, when we came back from that car, I had made up my mind that, I was going to intervene, and I had relegated myself to the fact that I'm probably going to get shot. Be honest with you.
So what compels you to do that? There are plenty of people who would not confront the situation, but put themselves in a more defensive or protective
Sure.
mode. What what do you attribute your willingness to even, it just stuns me when you say, I knew I was probably going to get shot, but yet you still moved ahead toward danger. And I know, police officers are trained to this. Of course, they have the equalizer too, which you did not. You weren't armed, right?
Correct. I was
Yeah.
not.
So, I mean, all you have is, brute force and
Bare hands. That's it.
Yeah, but and you're not a martial artist, and I so assume you don't really have, again, my assumption, formal training on how to disarm somebody or to deal with somebody who's pointing a gun. I'm going to go even further to assume you've never been in a situation where somebody has drawn a gun, at close range to you. Is that fair?
Not like that. No, not like that. I mean, it was new territory. But I hear what you're saying. I want to say that I certainly don't look at people who would either run or get defensive in a negative light. I mean, we all are who we are, and we all do what we can do. As far as how I reacted, which honestly, so this is going to sound weird too, it was pretty calm. I wasn't afraid, and I'm not trying to be a tough guy here. I'm just telling you, like, I wasn't afraid for a second about getting shot by this guy. My only thought was that he can't come in here and he can't be allowed to take up a position of advantage, an advantageous position in this bar, and start popping rounds off into this crowd, because then there's going to be a lot of people whose families aren't going to have somebody tomorrow. And my thought was I need to get him away from the entrance of this bar and away from these people. As to why, it was honestly the only option that my brain processed. I can't really explain to you why there wasn't the instinct to run or anything. I guess maybe if there was a way that I could have told everyone get inside, and close the door and locked them out and called the police, then I probably would have done that. But just the way the whole scenario was, the landscape, the geometry of the objects that were around me and the way everyone was kind of spread out, it was just not an option. And the fact that the gate in the back, it's a huge sliding gate. It would have taken me, a good solid, 7 to 8 seconds to close it. And the guy could have easily shot an entire clip into me at that point. So, I needed to engage him and get him off balance and, get him running.
Wow. So you had to come home and have a conversation.
I had to have a conversation with my wife at 2 a.m. from a hospital bed.
Okay, so what's that conversation sound like? And you don't have to share, the intimacy. But
it was not fun.
How you tell this story, to your wife?
I was gonna try to wait till the next morning, but as everything in this day and age, it just started hitting social media right away. I mean, I'm sitting there in my hospital bed, and I asked for my phone because I wanted to communicate with the people who were there, because people wanted to know I was okay. And in my mind, I was getting out of that hospital, and I was not gonna die on that bed. I was gonna get up. So I needed to communicate with my bandmates, say, come get me because I want to go home. So I asked that phone, and then people started messaging me and blah, blah, blah. Like, oh my God, I heard what happened. And I was like, oh, my wife cannot find about this on Facebook. That would just be awful. So I called her, and yeah, it was hard. It was hard. It was hard for me to get the words out. I mean, it was really hard for me to call my parents the next morning. It was, there was a lot of really hard conversations to have because, it is scary. And I'm here talking about it very matter of factly, but it is a scary situation. There's no way to say that it's not. So that was not a lot of fun to have that conversation, but we're okay. She's here taking care of me, and we're both coping all right now.
Yeah. So is she? I don't know her. I only compare such a scenario to what I think my wife would say, and it'd be like, you're not going out and doing this again.
Well, no, she's. I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I think that my wife is a very very strong woman, and I think she knows that this music thing is in my soul, and she wouldn't make me. So I don't think she blames the music or the touring or the location or anything for it. Much like I don't. I mean, I really don't see this. We need to clear this one thing up. This individual was not at the show. He was not an audience member. He came there afterwards. He was out looking for trouble. I don't believe this was targeted. I believe it was completely random. I think if it was targeted, he probably would have showed up during the show while everyone was inside. I think this guy was just out he was on a cocktail of substances too. I don't know. I don't have the experience with drugs to possibly, describe what it was, but this was completely random. He just wound up in a group of people and was like, okay, here we go. He was probably just out looking for somebody to be violent with. There was also like a bit of a human in there at the same time too. Like you could almost see, like after he shot me, you could kind of see the fear. And I don't know if the fear was because I got up or the fear was because he realized he just shot someone, but he ran. Like he ran like hell. So I don't know what conflict there was in his brain, if any, but all I know is if I have my way, he's going to be going away for a while.
So I assume you had to file some police reports or give some statements as well?
There's been statements given. He was arraigned on Tuesday. I believe there's some preliminary hearings coming up that I'm supposed to try to get back to Boise and be there for somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I can't walk, so I don't know how I'm going to get on an airplane.
Well, the good thing of COVID is we've learned a lot about how to do things virtually that once we only ever could do in person, but somehow now we magically can do virtually. So
yeah, all of a sudden, right? We could do all this stuff. Yeah, I hear you. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, that I guess depends on, according to the DA I spoke to, that it depends on what the prosecutor wants and what the judge will allow. So we just have to see how it's all going to play out.
Yeah. So one of the things that when I interview folks who've had events like this, if they've had a near miss, an almost tragedy, and I wouldn't necessarily call yours a near miss. To meet the definition of a near miss, for me, for your scenario, it would be the guy shot his gun, but the bullet missed you, and that would be a near miss. So this isn't a near miss. This is a hit, because it resulted in casualty. Right. But what advice would you give for someone else who might find themselves, they're the next Darin Wall in a crowd of people, and they see this bizarre behavior, and then the person goes to their vehicle and they come back with a backpack, and what were there any lessons learned or advice that you would give, or
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I thought about, lessons to be learned from this, and I've thought about some different scenarios, and I try not to go there too much because, if you auger too much into the what ifs or the coulda, shouldas or coulda beens, that's, I think, when you wind up messing your brain up a little bit, and I think that's, that is something that, I've heard some military people talk about is, when you have a close call, you don't think about what could have been. The mission was accomplished, and that's all that matters. And in the end, to me, all that matters is that everyone's alive. I mean, that was my goal. My goal was to stop anyone from dying, and mission accomplished. As for advice, I would say, like, if you see a situation that you feel is abnormal or out of the ordinary, I mean, just start your thought process right away. Start your analysis. What is the threat level? What is my environmental situation? What are the inherent dangers? What's around the victims, the potential victims? If you have a weapon on you, think about how you're going to use that, what the odds of you being successful with your weapon are. what's around the person who's, doing the shooting or doing the aggressive behavior, because the worst thing you can do is smoke somebody else who doesn't deserve it. So, just get your brain going, and and try to control, your nerves. Cause I think that's one of the reasons I was successful, is I was able to be very calm. And, if you can control your nerves and engage your brain, even though things are happening fast, it will slow down, and to me, like when this situation was unfolding, the main thing was that I noticed it early, and I was able to get myself in a position where, at the very least, I was able to, when he was shooting me, he didn't have the gun like this aiming, he was rolling backwards and he had it in his pants. So he didn't have the time to aim it at my head or my torso or anything. Like I had him moving back and I had him reeling, so he was at a disadvantage of a position when he was discharging his weapon. So, these are all things to think about. And, that was really the only play I had at the time, because I didn't have anything. It was, once it escalated to that point, I mean, you think about certain situations, like, could I have tackled the guy? Could I have jumped on him? And then, if that gun's in his pocket and he gets his hand on it, that bullet could go through your abdomen, or it could go anywhere, coulda, shoulda, wouldas, right? But I mean, like I said, I think the best thing is just get your brain going and think about what your alternatives are, what your options are, and pick one and act on it.
And could you say that you were thinking through some of those options before you actually engaged him?
Yes. Now, that being said, that's probably unique to my scenario. Not every scenario is like that. I mean, if this dude walked up with gun drawn, I probably wouldn't have had the option to do it. But he was off. He was also trying to get into the venue too, to probably get to a position where he could get at people, because most of the people were behind a big fence, and he was, out in the parking lot, there was maybe, a couple targets, one or two. Inside there was probably 20, so I believe that's why he was trying to force his way in there.
How has the attention been that has come your way as a result of this incident? Are you getting?
It's been wild, man. I mean, it's like, it's one of those things where, my phone was just been, blowing up nonstop for the last 2 days. I had local news crews over here. I can't say, I gotta say, it's been odd, being the number 3 story on Google News has been odd. You see your name next to like the president and COVID, you're like, what the heck is going on? So it's been a while, but I'll say that, the one reason I've been talking to every news outlet, every radio person who wants to talk to me, because I figure, I don't lump you into this category. This is kind of more of a niche podcast, and this one is very, very interesting one to me. I didn't know you did this, and I'm actually quite fascinated to go check it out after the fact. I feel like this is a very important topic for people to discuss. But with the media stuff, I mean, I figure that if my voice is at least involved in it, then I get to tell the story my way, and then no one's putting twists on it, And it's not to say that I don't trust the media or I don't trust people. It's just a natural human thing that when something becomes fourth-hand information, facts just start to get a little skewed. And if I could keep things as firsthand as possible, then the facts remain as straight up as they can.
And I appreciate that perspective, because one of the things that happens, the media has, 40 seconds to a minute and a half to tell someone's entire story of what happened, and then they're going to put some form of interpretation, some might say a spin on it. At least for this show, they're going to hear your whole story. I will have no commentary when it's done. Whatever you said is the whole story, and it'll be there. It'll be there for people to learn from. I mean, I think what you did was just absolutely heroic. And I think that you're a humble enough man that you might say, no, I was just doing what anybody would do. I've talked to plenty of people who've done heroic things, and I know their mindset is that I was just an ordinary person put in an extraordinary situation. And you might see it that way, but the way I look at it is, you might be an ordinary person, but what you did goes beyond what the ordinary person would do. When you, especially with your mindset of, as you were approaching this, you thought to yourself, I'm probably going to get shot here. And I can't imagine what it must be like to still just propel yourself forward to say, I'm going to do whatever I can to keep this person from killing a bunch of people at this event. And I wondered, did it ever occur to you, like, this is my birthday, I didn't expect, that things might end for me on my birthday like this? Did anything like that like pop through your mind or anything?
Not at the time. I mean, I definitely cracked a lot of jokes about it in the ambulance and at the hospital to the folks that were there. But no, not at that time. I really appreciate your kind words, man. I really do. But yeah, I did the whole birthday thing didn't enter my mind till after, and I was just kind of like, I made a meme of myself. I made a saying, and my friend Doug made a meme, and it's me sitting in the chair the next day, eating breakfast, recovering, giving the thumbs up, and it says, "Went to play a show in Boise on my birthday, and all I got was a stupid bullet." I thought that was pretty funny.
That is funny. Darin, is there anything that you would want to share that you haven't had the chance to share because I didn't ask you the right question?
I guess I mean, one of the things that I'll say that definitely contributed, I think, to my awareness in this current situation was, as we emerge from, being locked up for a year, I have noticed some, obviously this is the worst behavior I've noticed, but I've noticed some really poor behavior from people, both, especially in person, in public. And I think that it possibly is coming from some of the poor behavior I'm seeing from people do on the internet. I think we've all been isolated for a long time. I think we've all been staring at words on screens, and people have been saying things without repercussions and acting very disrespectfulme to each other for a long time. And, I think that's starting to play out in the real world, and it kind of scares me. Me and my drummer frequent this one bar in Georgetown area, Seattle, and we have seen people do things down there since the reopening that we never saw in years of going there. And it's like, we have to start. I know we're a nation and we're a planet divided in many ways right now. We are, politically, socially, morally, a lot of people have different ideas on what's right and what's wrong. But what we can't do is we can't turn on each other, and we can't lose the fact that, we're all human beings, and we're all in this together. And even though we all have different ideas of how things should be done, and so there's some that I vehemently agree with and some that I vehemently don't, we're all human, and there's no justification for any of this kind of behavior. And we need to get back to civil discourse. We need to get back to respectful discourse. We need to get back to a point where we can speak with each other and try to figure out what our issues are as people, as Americans, as Canadians, as Europeans, as everybody, and try to figure out ways to fix this stuff. Because being violent, being aggressive, and being jerks to each other, it ain't gonna cut it. It's just going to result in things like this. And I'm not saying that this guy shot me because of COVID or wanted to do this because of COVID. He was obviously mentally unstable, and he's obviously, I think that 95% of the people in this world are good, and they want to do good. Many of them mess up because of, situational things in their life, mental illness, things like that. And then there's a small percentage that are just terrible people. I think this individual falls in that small percentage. But that being said, I have noticed a lot of really poor behavior out there. And I would just like to tell everybody that, even if you feel angry, if you feel alone, if you feel that, the world isn't fair to you, hey, we still got to be good to each other. We're all still people. Everybody out there that you see, that you meet, is a son, a daughter, a mother, a father, a cousin, a brother, a sister. We're all people. So please treat each other as such, and please let's all just try to do a little bit better.
That's fantastic. Fantastic advice. If someone was interested in your music, where would they go to buy your music?
Okay, so if you're the best place to go is our Bandcamp. For those of you who don't know, Bandcamp is a site that hosts music for bands, and they let us sell our merchandise and our music digitally or physically, and they only take a small cut of the music in order for us to host it. The rest goes straight to the artist. So our Bandcamp is grayhawkmetal.bandcamp.com. All of our merchandise and our music is up there. You can stream it, you can buy it, you can download it, whatever you need. If you are in Europe, the best thing to do is to go to our record label, which is Fighter Records, and they will have all of our stuff for sale, because you do not want to pay the cost of shipping that it's going to take for me to send a t-shirt to Europe. It will cost me $50 to send you a $20 t-shirt. So please just buy the stuff from our record label. When you buy it from the label, they send us more stuff. So buying it from our label helps us too. So please go there. Apart from that, you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. The handle is Grayhawk Metal for all of that.
Okay. And you podcast, so tell us a little bit about that.
That's correct. So me and my singer have a podcast where we do deep dives on what we call classic heavy metal albums that, like new heavy metal albums that have a classic sound. So bands that are very much like us. And during lockdown, it was a way for us to start actively listening to new music, because one thing that you can do, I'm a 41-year-old man, so one thing that happens to you as you get older, you can get in a musical rut of just listening to the stuff that you listened to when you were in your 20s, and that thirst for new music kind of goes away. So we started this podcast as a way to kind of kick us into listening to new music and talking about it and promoting our scene, and it's been really cool. So our podcast is called Keepers of the Flame. It's the same name as our debut full-length album. And there's two Keepers of the Flame podcasts. One is a religious studies podcast, so that's definitely not us. That's cool too, but it's definitely not a heavy metal podcast. So if you write Keepers of the Flame heavy metal podcast, that you'll be able to find it. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, and Google, and we have our RSS feed, and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, good. I'm going to, for the listeners and viewers, I'm going to put the links in the show notes so you can be able to get access to the Bandcamp. And
that's wonderful. Thank you.
So, Darin, thank you so much for gifting me some of your time, especially in the barrage of media that I know you must be dealing with. I feel very honored that I would. So here's how this went. I said I heard it. I told you I heard about it on the morning. I listened to a classic rock channel, and then they have a morning show where it's just all like talk in the morning. Mm-hmm. And they said this is literally what they said was, for the most part, bass players of bands are considered probably the more mellow of the members of a band, but not always. And then they told this story, and when they told the story, I thought, oh my God, there's so much connection to situational awareness, high risk decision making, intuition, gut feel, all these things that I talk about. So I thought, I'd love to interview this guy, but what's the chances? I mean, he's at home recovering from a gunshot wound. The media is probably all over him. So I went on the internet. I found the Facebook page, which was easy to find. I just put your name in and it came up. The media story came up. I went to your Facebook page. I sent a message and said, I'd love to interview you. And I put my phone number and you called me.
Okay, well, it was a very interesting. There's a few requests there. I'm only going to tell the story so many times to metal podcasts and stuff, and I've done a few, but this one was interesting. I was like, wow, I truly think that what your podcast is about is a very interesting topic, and b, I think it's a helpful thing for people to listen to. I mean, this is real world stuff you're talking about. This is things that help people in their day to day, and I thought this was really interesting. And then I said, well, I'll call this guy and kind of scope him out. And you seemed really nice on the phone, so I was like, yeah, this sounds like a good way to spend part of my Thursday afternoon while I'm sitting here, watching old reruns of The Simpsons and stuff.
Well, we'll close with this. I think the world is a better place for the Darin Walls that are out there that are willing to step up and do the right thing, even with the knowledge, the conscious knowledge that you're putting yourself potentially in grave danger to save the lives of others. And you did that, and you're humble enough to, not be boastful about it, but you did it. And I'm grateful to you, and I'm sure the people who listen to this episode are going to be grateful to you. And what I hope it does is, as you had said, that it inspires people to be kinder. It inspires people to be more compassionate toward their fellow humans, because you're the living example of it. And I'm just so honored to have met you and to got to know you. And I didn't tell you this, but I was kind of creeping on you. I was listening to your music on YouTube. The Keepers of the Flame. There's some YouTube music there that I was listening to and I'm like, this is good stuff. And I gotta tell you, I'm not historically one who would listen to heavy metal music. There's some, I guess, heavy metal and classic rock that I listen to, but I would not search out new music. And you've inspired me to broaden my horizons and to learn more and to be more appreciative of the heavy metal music. And honestly, that what I listened to, I really enjoyed what I was listening to. And so thank you for the interview. And the show will it'll air in just a couple of weeks, and I'll send you the link to it. So if you want to share it with anyone else, or let your wife hear the story that you haven't told her.
That's good.
Yeah. All right, Darin. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you, Darin Wall, for sharing your amazing story with us today. Since the start of the pandemic, I've had some tremendous opportunities to present my programs on a virtual platform to groups ranging in size from 6 to 400, with recorded playbacks being viewed over 29,000 times. Here's hoping that the new COVID variants don't shut things down again, and we return to some form of normalcy. I'd like to thank the organizations that have hosted live situational awareness programs since the pandemic opened things back up, including the Minnesota Board of Firefighter Training and Education, the Fire Chiefs Association of British Columbia, the Clark County Fire Protection District No. 6 in Vancouver, Washington, the Spring Fire Department in Spring, Texas, Fire Rescue International in Charlotte, North Carolina, the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in Kittery, Maine, La Crosse Fire Department in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and most recently at Firehouse Expo in Columbus, Ohio. A special thanks to the organizations who've allowed me to offer your members virtual training. If you're interested in hosting a live event or a virtual program, just click on the Contact Us tab at the top of the samatters.com homepage, and I'll give you a call. Finally, remember to check the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter and how to follow us on social media. There we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 379 of the Situation Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you again to my guest, Darin Wall, for sharing your story with us today. And thank you to our listeners and viewers for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. If you're interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit his website, samatters.com. If you're interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for a program, or if you would like to be a guest on his show, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage.